Welcome to After the Letter, our short companion conversation to this week's reading of the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. In these episodes, one of us has just narrated the letter while the other is hearing it for the first time. Together we explore what stood out, what surprised us, and why Lewis's observations continue to resonate today. This week we're reflecting on Letter 3, where Lewis leaves behind broader ideas and turns to one of the most familiar settings of all, family life.
It's a really good story when you're not told everything. It's mid-answer by Uncle Wormwood, Screwletter, sorry. I will get this right eventually.
Screwtape.
Screwtape, see?
Screwletter. So that's a different podcast.
Okay, let's start again. It's really interesting. It felt a lot closer, like literally closer to home, because it was about a family relationship, a son and a mother, and them winding each other up somehow, and whether it's on purpose or not. We've all got relationships with family members that rub us up the wrong way. There's a mention of rheumatism, and rather than worrying about his mum's rheumatism, he's worrying about her spiritual well-being. And so then that builds on the last one, because he comes with his own expectations, and his own expectations kind of drive what he then sees. He thinks he's thinking about what's important, but actually he's completely missing the point. And that's the point. If he's gone to visit his mother and then he's kind of judging her by a standard of something that he's come across now, he almost just feels performative. It's not true. It's not coming from his heart. It's coming from his head. It's coming from his ego. It's coming from somewhere else. It's coming from these pointers from Wormwood. It is a really interesting way of looking at family, and whether that's husband and wife or mother and child, parent and child.
Yeah, he's tempted into thinking about the wrong thing rather than the greater thing. And I think the quote is he's more concerned with the state of her soul than the state of her rheumatism.
Yeah.
It seemed to me to be really personal in that respect. It seemed much closer to home when he's discussing little daily pinpricks turn into arguments, and how that's what the tempter's job is to exacerbate that by putting into the patient's mind the idea that the other person is saying these things deliberately to annoy. The patient becomes very hyper-focused on the tiny raise of the eyebrow, the tone, the inflection. And I know that we've had arguments where the tone came up as part of the reason for having had the argument in the first place. It almost could have been written about anybody close to somebody in a relationship having an argument.
Was that in your mind when you were doing it? Is that how you were aiming to convey it?
No, the material itself suggested all of that. Slowly the greater meanings of the text opened up. For an 80-year-old text, it's remarkably current in its depiction of the way in which human beings don't get on.
I don't see any caricatures this time.
No, it had more of a personal feeling to it. So rather than the patient and his mother being caricatures, I felt that they were real people. I suppose that explains why I've really retained a lot of this one. I think the heart of it is showing how the tempters sit on the shoulder metaphorically and build up antagonism within the domestic setting, and how the normal interactions become tainted, especially with people closest to you.
There was a reference to the mother looking at him and how he seems to be all righteous when she gave him that opportunity when he was young. So that resonated with me in terms of whatever the norms are when you're young and whatever rules are put upon you or perspective, when you discover them for yourself, even if you're really experiencing them truthfully, it's still going to look odd to your family because they may not be able to disassociate from that younger experience. So it's another way of just misunderstanding and not seeing each other.
You would think that you would have the hardest time communicating with strangers, and you would have the easiest time communicating with your loved ones. And actually, it seems to be the other way around. That you could easily have a conversation about really meaningful topics with a complete stranger on the bus and yet not be able to have that same conversation at home with your nearest and dearest.
I'm just thinking, in families, it feels like we have double standards. We expect so much more of the people around us and the people we know. They're so close to us that we don't actually see them. They don't see us. And there is this weird thing of we know each other well, but actually we don't know each other at all because we don't know each other now.
We think we know
we know each other. And then, in fact, what we're doing is we're judging people by potentially a standard that we don't even keep ourselves, but we think we should be keeping. What you were just saying before around strangers, it is easy when you're less vested in a relationship.
It's easier to talk to strangers because you're not tempted into bad behaviour with them.
Or you don't care. Some people don't care, and so they'll just say anything because they're not vested and they're not going to see that person again. It can go either way.
Why be more open with a stranger than your spouse? Because that seems to be a thing in our society that most of us, I think, find it easier to talk to strangers.
So even if there was no Screwtape, even if there was no Wormwood, how much of this would be happening anyway? How much of this is really family dynamics?
But how much of what we call family dynamics is actually this?
Yeah.
This offers an explanation that the tempters whisper in your ear lies about what the other person is doing. And it builds up and builds up and builds. It's a slow erosion over time.
Yeah, it's sort of like a, what is it, death by 1,000 cuts type thing.
Yeah, daily pinpricks. Yeah. The behaviour of the family dynamic in this respect acts contrary to the principles of charity. So if the mother and the son were being virtuous and charitable with each other, then this is what happens when they're not being charitable.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And it's that every day, isn't it? It wasn't anything significant, but those little moments with people that you spend lots of time with, and they almost become invisible to each other, and all we see is the annoyances. We don't see the human being.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see this written and think, well, actually, is there a mechanism? I mean, is that actually something that I've been pushed into that I hadn't even realised all of these years, that I'm actually judging somebody with a completely unrealistic set of expectations when actually I should just be seeing them.
It really does make me think of how I behave. I am very heartened that I've been able to develop different kinds of relationships with my family members and just move beyond a lot of that. So I'll say again, as I did last week about Anne of Green Gables and that phrase, tomorrow is fresh with no mistakes. With all of this, I think the first thing is being kind and compassionate to myself and go, do you know what? I actually don't like how I was. Never mind how anybody else was and how they made me feel. Fundamentally, it's up to me to deal with that upset because I can't really know what's going on in their minds, and I could drive myself crazy filling in the gaps trying to understand that. And maybe that is, again, an example in this story of what the demons are doing. That is kind of like, let's get them caught up with that. But there's hope, people. There's hope.
Yeah.
If I can do it, then other people can
Well,
do
you said to me many years ago, which I took absolutely to heart, and I try to do it with everybody that I meet, especially people who are exhibiting road rage or just being generally unpleasant for no seemingly good reason. You said, just assume that that person is having the worst day of their life. That's the essence of being charitable in respect to what C.S. Lewis, I think, is pointing out in Letter 3.
What Screwtape is pointing out in all of those observations, so dastardly.
It's so dastardly.
He has all of that experience and he's just saying, Wormwood, yes, this works. Do this, do that, do the other. So I'm very curious to know what happens in the next one.
It gets darker.
Oh, gosh, okay.
Thank you for listening to After the Letter. If you haven't yet heard Letter 3, you'll find it in the main Screwtape Letters playlist. We'll return after the next reading with another conversation as we continue exploring Lewis's remarkable work, one letter at a time. Until then, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What everyday observation from letter 3 felt most true to your own experience?